date, to the next day, to the next month, and the next, and then to the next year, and the next, until we arrive at July 8th, 2024. Close your eyes, and 3 years have come and gone. You are now 3 years older. Your family members, spouse, children, friends are all 3 years older. Imagine now that you are reading the local headline news, or you turn on the local news on TV or your smart device. The headlines proclaim that the Blue Horizons Community Council has been wildly successful in achieving their purpose and goals. You are all praised for the amazing success and touted as a nationwide best practice. This council has been victorious. Now you have reconnected with friends, family, peers, coworkers, and the public. What are you hearing? What do you see or feel? What is the chatter? What has been most exciting? How have lives changed? How has the community been impacted by this success? Why is the Blue Horizons Community Council deserving of such recognition? What difference is it making? What does success look like? Now, please open your eyes. And our focus question is, what do we want to see in place in 3 years from now, 2024, as a result of our efforts? What does success look like for Blue Horizons Community Council? So at this point, we're not yet creating an action plan, but rather creating a palette of possibilities. What does that future state look like? So after visualizing the success, I'm just going to ask you, this won't be small group, this will just be kind of free brainstorming. What does victory look like in 3 years for your council, for the work that you all have done, put into it? Just invite you to, and I'll record your thoughts. What do you see in place?
I'd like to see us have made a tangible impact on some projects actually being built by the significant projects that people can point to, and not just the plan in 3 years.
Are we allowed to interact here? How does this work?
Yes.
I just wanted to, like, did you have, Dave, did you have something specific in mind on what those concrete projects would be?
I do, but basically I'd rather describe them as large renewable energy projects that we have influenced, not just the cities and the counties, but that we have influenced and caused to be built in that time frame.
You again, such as?
You thinking like utility scale solar, storage?
It's funny you say utility scale. I actually like seeing projects that are on the end user site.
Okay.
So for example, this is not anything that's, that I know to be planned, but Homeward Bound is buying a motel on Tunnel Road. I'd love to see us influence a project like that to have a big solar installation on the roof. That's, again, I don't know anything about what they're doing, but
That's not the point at this part. Yeah, right. So
to kind of build on that, an expectation that every new building, especially large buildings and industrial facilities, they are as close to zero energy buildings as possible. Of course, they don't need they're self-sustaining.
would you say all new buildings are net zero energy?
Yeah, that would work.
Ambitious. I think I would like to see our existing building stock undergo any retrofits that they need, whether they're homes or commercial spaces or industrial spaces. So continued focus on energy efficiency.
Yeah, I think on that one, I really am into this idea of the heat pump program. I think that's a really big thing we can do on energy efficiency. That could probably go under existing building stock.
I would like to see any projects that we're working on first and foremost benefiting those who have not in the past benefited from renewable energy and environmental programs. So the people in Buncombe County who have the least resources benefiting from this work.
So for the benefit, just housekeeping thing, for the benefit of the folks here, let's try and use our outside voices so that they can hear us. I just want folks to not have to tap on their computer and say, what was that?
I really have an outside voice.
That's okay. I'll repeat everything you say. How's that?
I'd say more awareness of the energy wasted in commercial buildings. I guess the awareness of the building owners.
That training and information.
I'd say combination, yeah, providing resources.
I'd like to see private dollars be contributing so that we can do all this great work.
And I'll build on that by saying I'd like to see a thriving private sustainability sector with jobs and really recognition of its impact on our economy.
Thriving private sector jobs,
Sustainability sector, yeah.
sustainability sector.
I would like to see Duke Energy get on board granted rebate programs for energy efficiency and renewable energy. And John Landy come in to hear that comment.
Sorry.
Thank you. I'll piggyback both Ken and Bridget's comments. Just more of an investment in technology, building technology, so we can have all these great building analytics to find all the waste and measure our renewables.
You know, we should give our Solarize program is really doing great, and we should keep that work going. We can debate about the efficacy of small scale rooftop solar, but I think it really people love it. People love to feel like they're a part of something and to be able to vote with their dollars and stuff. And I think it's kind of low hanging fruit in a way.
So keeping
That's really working out.
keeping that going.
Yeah, maybe more Solarize.
Especially if we hit our goal of 1 megawatt.
Yeah, it looks like we're well on the way.
And I guess that builds into public awareness. I mean, that
Right, it's like an easy way, like the hood ornament's an easy way to kind of drive some of this other stuff. Maybe especially like donations,
Yeah, and kind of to piggyback off that, I would say I would want to see anything that's happening being done with the community instead of to them.
Plus, if it's a megawatt a year, sorry, Beatrice. That's a lot compared to what's happening in town without it. Sure.
What's our current count at Solarize?
I think we're like at 700 something kilowatts.
7.7 megawatts, and how many signs?
There's been 2 contracts signed, but
But-
over 600 people have signed up for assessment.
So to sort of piggyback on this partnering with the community thing, I think a focus on environmental justice and equity has to be kind of at the center of any of the decisions we make. I think all of us know that historically things like renewable energy are not even accessible to the middle class, much less, you know, those folks in the lower income bracket and you know, traditionally marginalized communities. So, you know, while it can't be, you know, every program's going to benefits, I think that needs to be a primary question we ask ourselves at each point when we're deciding which programs we want to invest in.
I think that would come with the sustainable jobs sector and environmental justice, that we would see more diversity in the leadership of this campaign, because more people would be invested and see the value.
All very doable. We got this.
In 3 years.
In 3 years, yeah.
This is a little more nuts and bolts, maybe a little bit more boring, but given the 3-year time frame, I would love to see this group have the infrastructure to be energized, organized, you know, sort of reflective, like how do we roll? How do we keep projects moving? How do we grow? How do we look at ourselves and, you know, focus work groups and work plans in an ongoing way?
Really good point.
Not a good ornament.
Make sure there's oil in the car.
This way.
The battery's charged.
Yeah, the battery's charged by the.
Realize how outdated.
Thank you, Bridget.
For the community itself, I'd really like it to be seen on a national scale as kind of like the go-to organization that other municipalities, other cities and states, to have a high enough profile because of the success that people will frequently ask us how we got here, and
They serve as a model.
yeah, serve as a model and really be highlighted in everybody's mind. And including, that really includes a lot of our local partners who don't tend to think about energy first.
Say local partners.
Not local partners, local governments and local groups, buildings, owners.
How much is that in that if we're sort of trying to be a go-to model for other areas and communities, to have something a little bit more concrete to say, well, these are our suggestions, this worked, this is what we learned that was a challenge for us, so maybe you can do it better. You know, to have some of those ideas kind of fleshed out and be able to coach people a little bit more than just saying, this is what we've done.
And to build on that other idea about the structure, one thing that's really critical is to understand how we fit in with other organizations. So how do we become effective while not trying to overstep or step on other people's toes, integrate ourselves into the solution and not create more issues.
I would love it if it kind of ties together bigger projects and social justice and just thinking about like community solar. If we could pull off like getting a community solar project done, that would be a great model.
Or hit that elusive rental market.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
You busy for 3 years?
Well, we get to winnow it down now, right?
Yeah, we'll get much more concrete with this, but it's kind of fun to kind of say, oh, this is our goal to be here in 3 years. Even if it's, we're talking about 3 years, but some of this may get a start within 3 years, but at least you're kind of have that guidepost to say this is where we want to be. This is for our goals. Anything else to add before we move on? Kind of, since this was the end in mind, we're going to take a step back and do a swatch analysis of this team and the efforts that you all put into place, and then the impact we believe will have the same swatch. So I'm thinking about the victory items which you put over here for reference. Please reference those as we're talking through this. We're going to talk about your strengths, weaknesses, benefits, and dangers. So in thinking about this quadrant here, when we talk about your strengths and weaknesses, we're talking about the strengths and weaknesses of this team, not of what's lacking, what's not in place, what we want to do, what we love about this community. This is the strengths and weaknesses of this team. When we talk about the benefits and dangers, that's when we're talking about, okay, when we're successful, what are the benefits to that? And then, what are the risks or dangers, quite possibly, to being of the impact of our tasks and our projects. So we'll get into that in a minute, but let's focus now on strengths and weaknesses. So again, I believe we are going to just be talking, just kind of brainstorming out loud at this point still. So what strengths of this team will lead you to victory? What are the strengths of your team that will lead you to victory? Will lead you to achieving the victory goals that you set?
I think there's a decent amount of subject area like expertise in the room, right? Folks that have energy backgrounds, folks that have, a lot of work history in utility space or energy efficiency. I think there's a lot of that subject matter expertise in the room.
What's some other strengths?
The group is really good at seeing both the big picture and the details at the same time as a group.
I like that we have people that have been working on this for a long time. They've been here for several years.
I would frame that as a really a lasting commitment and an overall enthusiasm, at least that I've seen in the time that I've been here.
And continuity.
We have like the support of the city and the county resources.
thinking about that city county support, thinking about there's policy, goals, elected officials and staff, which is sort of unique in this field that we have all of those together.
Was funding in that
And
list.
fun.
If money helps, yeah. Sure.
I think similar to that, maybe an expansion is just general cross-sector engagement, like private sector, nonprofit, government. There's a lot of different cross-sector representation already in the room.
I would say that only a few meetings, but I would say most people here, pretty much everyone seems pretty grounded, realistic, probably because we've all been humbled so, over the years.
Other strengths.
I would say there's already projects and programs in motion that are happening on a daily basis. It's not like we're definitely going to be growing from here, but there's already things that are
Wheels are turning.
really turning exactly.
Due to the work of this group. Efforts.
But it's somewhat building upon the efforts of like Energy Innovation Task Force and the BHP being created and all this other background. So kind of like grown to this, we've kind of been walking on this trail up the mountain and we're kind of at this point, we see we're gonna go. Now we have a new team to kind of help usher us to the next.
We have a lot to live up to.
Also, always go back to strengths. Talk about your weaknesses of this team or opportunities.
I'll say one last thing, friends, I'll say a lot of, we build a pretty strong business case. It's not just a business case. There's a strong story behind our efforts.
There are two weaknesses that jump off the top of my
Okay.
head. The first is easy, a lack of ethnic and racial diversity in this group. And the second is the dwindling participation of the utility. I would say they're not participating at all. They're not here, so I can say what I like. Not the utility, but they're not here again.
I'll add gender to that, ethnic and racial. The women in the room are staffing this organization.
The utility.
Luckily, check.
You don't want to use their name.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I certainly wasn't trying to be secret about it. Everybody
You
knows.
can all look it up later.
That's who they pay when they get to power. So
Another weakness is a lack of strong community support. We've had some community engagement that's been successful, but it's dwindling, I think, because of COVID, but there's definitely a lot of room to grow in terms of community engagement and participation in this effort.
Yeah, and along those lines, I feel like we're lacking like programming, like a depth of programming that really like brings the community in. Like we could deepen our programming that like really brings in a wider sector of the community, more groups.
Since we have no mandates, we have to basically encourage the public to support whatever it is we're trying to do. So yeah, that's critical. The programming and getting public buy-in.
we can also use better buy-in from the organizations already doing work in this town, right? Whether it's the MHOs or the habitats or whoever it is. I mean, we have relationships, but I feel like they need to be stronger. They need to buy into what we're doing more. So some, the organizations in town that are already, doing work that we're talking about, and again, we have relationships, but what we don't have is that sort of seamless, one to the next transition, that I guess we hoped, would come out of like the Candida, grant. It's like that one-stop shop thing. It's not what we hoped it would be. So I think that's an opportunity as well. Of course, they have, mixed use dance, I guess, but
I would say just as like the new people sitting at the table, it's a fresh perspective as a strength. It's also a weakness to lose that institutional knowledge of all the years of work that led up to being able to take this from being predominantly controlled in the government space to being in the community space.
Yeah, we could use more fresh voices for sure.
Just a question, the city and county, we see in the strengths that provide support among other ways other than being here, in funding. Is funding also a weakness, or does the group feel that it has an adequate level of funding right now?
does anybody ever have an idea? I think that's very fair.
Focusing on the realistic.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a very fair point, I think.
As I recall, part of the impetus for making this a nonprofit is to open up opportunities to do some fundraising, and I don't know where things stand on that, but that might qualify as on the to-do list.
It's an opportunity for sure. Absolutely.
And the 3-year victory plan, didn't you say?
That's right. That's right.
Sorry.
It was led by Steve Barron too.
We didn't actually put that on there.
Well, I'm sorry, you want to put my name under the weakness list?
Under
I'll take off my mask for that.
No, I was saying it was your name. We're going to put your name under the victory fundraising.
That's what I meant.
Any other thoughts that come to mind on either one of these, this side around strength?
I'd say it's kind of flip of one of the strengths. We've got a lot of collective knowledge, but it's like, how do we communicate that without, there's a lot of probably duplication of efforts, how do we know the city's doing it, it's the county, and how do we all communicate better? I don't know. It certainly helps being face to face.
How do we communicate together effectively?
I think also utilize all the different partners that are engaged, maybe effectively and efficiently.
Yeah, just so we're not duplicating similar efforts, or maybe we can just share similar challenges, so we're not all having to recreate the wheel.
Yeah, and the hands make a lot of work. Yeah.
All right.
I think one last strength is that we had a pretty big win in 2019 of avoiding the peaker plant. So that's something that we can point to and can
Proven
buoy
success.
us.
Yeah, proven success. I agree.
That's when they were engaged. Utility.
Yes.
All right. So what are some potential dangers of succeeding in completing these projects and these tasks? These projects? What are some of the, actually, we'll start with benefits. What are some of the benefits of pursuing these tasks you want to accomplish?
Keep money in the community.
Doing our part to avoid the worst effects of climate change.
Yeah, that's kind of the big one, right? So why we're all here, but I think clean air and clean water are kind of the end goals for all of these things, but,
Community resiliency.
Yep.
Creation. Yeah. Economic development.
I guess part and parcel of clean air and clean water is improved public health.
Improved opportunities for historically marginalized communities as well. We talk about job creation and economic development. We're not bringing them along with us. I think we fail.
Lower energy bills for all.
Yeah, that's good.
I think if we're talking about 3 years from now, we can get these successes done, then that's going to be, we'll have some really good momentum to continue doing bigger and better things.
Other benefits. We missed.
This idea of the regional model, like demonstrating success and hoping for replication in Southeast, Western North Carolina, outside of our community.
What are some of the dangers or risks of success on these projects? For the success of this team.
To me, the main danger is green gentrification and driving folks out of the community.
Can you say more about green gentrification?
I mean, there's just been so many studies and examples of like, as you bring in more renewable energy infrastructure and more walkability, it becomes a more attractive place for wealthier people to live, and prices go up, and people who have lived here for a long time get driven out.
That's a really good point, because I think all the work we do, we want to do, still has to be done in tandem with other priorities that are not related to environmental benefits, whether that's affordable housing, childcare, all the other sort of priorities that end up in these strategic plans that we're not thinking about the big picture, then these things happen, right? So I think that's a really, really good point.
I think that might be another danger, is that there's so many competing priorities and not many people take a holistic view and seeing that all of these priorities are connected. And then also the politicization of anything to do with climate change, I think is a risk.
State legislature.
But yeah, I mean, I think lack of political support at all, you know, I mean, we could lose the political support that we have at the local level.
Yeah, it takes one election cycle to change everything.
I also think it is danger that certain businesses may not want to, it may be unappealing for certain businesses to come to the mountains because they've got all these expectations. We have all these expectations that they're gonna do green building and stuff like that. That's just may be a no-go for some potential employers.
I was thinking the opposite, that it might attract more business and then make our goal harder to obtain because we're getting a more energy intensive area.
That's also.
But they're all net zero energy. We're gonna be just.
All two of them will come in. To Keith's point.
Dangers or risks.
That we do this without community support and they are not, and then they turn on us.
I was thinking the same thing about the utility.
Is like greenwashing a danger? Like we just pat ourselves on the back after getting to like 2% or something. I don't know. Maybe not.
I agree.
2%'s hard.
Lowering the bar.
Turn it over to Heather to move us into our next section.
What I want to point out about the strengths and weaknesses is that those items are describing what you all are responsible for, how you will make sure that this program, that your work is successful. The benefits and dangers, it sort of explain or describe the possible results from this action plan. So now I want you to think about your commitment and or purpose. And what I'd like to remind you of is that you all actually created, or a purpose was created in the team charter. And it's to address the current climate crisis by supporting the community and achieving our goal of reducing energy demand and transitioning to 100% renewable energy by 2042. We will reach these goals through community engagement and collaboration with Buncombe County, the City of Asheville, and Duke Energy. So I'd like to ask a simple question. I'd like for each of you to answer just off the top of your head. What words jump out at you on this sort of hearing? Engagement.
Come back to me.
Are you asking what words
What words?
on there?
Like when I read this, when you looked at it, what jumped
Look
out?
alive.
Read it again?
I want to understand the question. I'm looking for a word in there, or if I just the word that pops in mind.
Yeah, what pops in your head?
One of those words.
Ambitious.
What was that?
Ambitious.
So,
Collaboration.
Engagement.
read that, which helps out, is supporting the community.
Hugely ambitious. And where did we get it?
I would say community.
I'd say collaboration.
Yeah, community engagement, collaboration.
Say engagement, collaboration. Person.
I'll tell you what jumps out at me is that on this word.
That's really jumped out at all of us.
We only see when it's in front of us. So what seems most critical? Anyone can chime in. What seems most critical? If you think about this being your purpose, your commitment to the work that you're doing, what's the most critical item?
Reduce energy demand and 100% renewable.
And the coordination and collaboration with the named parties.
And community ownership.
I kind of like all of it. Maybe the only part that doesn't have to be in there is the collaboration with Duke Energy, but I still think it does. So I think it needs to be.
It needs to be accessible to all its community partners, kind of spread this throughout most of the community, so we have to make it accessible, digestible. These are some pretty technical things out there. So.
Yeah, it needs to become actionable. Like right now, it's just a statement. We need things that people can get their claws into.
What would you say are the values that you really want to make sure you're holding on to?
Communication.
Inclusion.
Values.
Accountability.
Like doing things, getting the actual things done, and really getting stuff done.
I'd like to piggyback on Phelps' comment and not stopping too soon. I do think we tend to be satisfied with too small of a goal.
That's a segue into my last question then. What are you additionally committed to or thinking through this? Is there anything else that we need to make a note of that you're committed to doing?
Well, at some point, we're gonna have to just address, mostly we talked about buildings. At some point, we're gonna have to figure out how we address transportation. Vehicle miles traveled and all that, because honestly, when it comes to climate, that's a bigger, and air quality specific, that's a bigger chunk of the whole picture. So we gotta somehow figure that out. But that's also achieving our goal, lots on that success. And,
Patrick, how to address transportation?
So that's part and parcel, and a hidden and often not really vocalized part of the 100% renewable energy goal. Remember on the strategic plan committee, Brad Rouse did that kind of baseline reference analysis in which he identified transportation, the use and consumption of oil, propane, and natural gas as being huge components of the task of transitioning to 100% renewable energy. Stated otherwise, if we were if Duke Energy were to successfully transition to 100% renewable energy, based on our community's current energy use, that would reach 23% of our goal. And transportation is a big chunk. Transitioning to EVs or whatever would be a big chunk of so that's the long-winded way of saying, yes, transportation is central and it's part of, I think, our 100% goal.
What else are you all committed to?
Bringing utility back in and pushing them on that energy mix.
Keeping equity and engagement front.
Any other commitments?
Using resources wisely, because there's not, a ton of money, but focus it as well. And sure, all these goals around inclusion, kilowatt hours reduced, collaboration, those markets.
Feel good about this? You have your purpose and some additional commitments around addressing transportation, bringing utility back into the table, back at the table, keep equity at the forefront, and using the resources wisely. So before we move into the next section, do you want to take a 5-minute break? We're going to start getting into some heavy action planning.
Great.
All right, so it's a couple minutes till 10. How about 10:05? That sound good? Nice little break room.
Right outside these doors, there's a cure.
That's true.
Exactly.
Two, they're great. Yes, thanks for asking. Yeah.
I get it.
Isn't it Kamala Harris?
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what she's about. Yeah, you have the work plan in order. I've never been close to it. Yeah.
That's good. I don't know if we get numbers.
Somewhere that once we make sense.
I thought this was she.
Yeah.
I know. I can't even read.
Oh, well, maybe try Nicholas.
Yeah.
Now, it makes sense to have it stuff digital rather than handwritten.
So, and I'll be here. Okay. So I'm just gonna turn in everything. I mean, I think,
To have it appear on the
yeah, if you had it on the
computer.
screen, yeah, that would be good. He's got a couple of different.
23%.
It's many a copy.
Then you think they're well.
That's great. That's
Take your time.
So how you convert all these?
Oh, you're up. Thumbs up from there. Oh, good. Awesome. All right, so doing that, look at her. Chick, email, the K. I know. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah. I know, look at us. How you doing? Fine, Ben, we're back to camp today. Ones that are still here, I'm having like on
I was reading where.
You know, I just, it's just like.
Electric only. Transportation rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah. You connect to that, right? Well, that's the next step.
Yeah, thanks, yeah. I was just about.
Yeah, the telecommuting was a big one.
That's what you can leave on iPhone.
Yes.
Which it is.
Okay, so we are doing this one.
Really, I didn't get back to that. These questions.
That's great. I think
Specific messages, lots of them.
Yeah.
The first item in victory, the beginning of this was probably not the right place, but I guess it's bullshit, but I read it off of your tangible impact.
They're called. It's like, I'm doing like a project.
And I hope that's.
Kind of like. They like, my boss used to be all.
No, that's good.
And this isn't. I would love to see us be a vehicle to. My wife volunteers at a food pantry. $5 a month or something. No, it's not that much. Maybe it's $600 a month. The church right there. So I'd love to see us be in a position where we could stimulate the flow of money, private money into those settings.
But sure, no, which first
But, and I suspect they're just trying to raise the 12 million fireplace right now.
I tell people it does the job.
So centralized top water. So you can go to solar panels,
I should know.
get the hot water, and then you've
All I
decoupled,
know is that.
you've created storage. So you've decoupled supply from demand. And that's a huge thing. I don't wanna imply that I am farther along than my inquiries into this. I mean, I'm talking to you about this. What job? I don't want to imply that this is a done deal.
No, I have no.
So, you know, the job of an
My perception is.
No, I have no idea what you're saying.
Some of them may say.
Put that yelling into them.
Putting them on the table and doing the.
What do you do? What did you do?
Regulators do not have.
I did lots of things, whether especially environmental.
You know, or there's some way we can get them to get an increase. And the kind of, so I would.
Well,
Yeah. Call on you. But I think those are great thoughts. They don't have to be, they're due, I don't think we need to, my own, I'm just telling you where I'm coming from here. I don't think they need to be aggressive about bringing forward ideas that may or may not launch. With potential, I would hope that making a list of those concrete good potential things, good base, go forward and explore it and figure out if they can.
I think I'm, you know, I've been always in the private sector, but I think. Yeah, I mean, it's
Probably just plans. I've heard so many master plans.
That's what I mean, that's why I think the best thing that can come out of this is concrete. I don't know with assignments or not.
Even though you're
Make a commitment that you would continue to pursue these things that you identified, maybe with another secretary to go. But
still want somebody
Make sure it's happening.
make sure it's happening. Yeah.
Right? That's why.
I've seen it, so I'm very skeptical what you are.
I think we can do a lot of good for you.
And something.
I didn't say. I did learn that. Yeah.
There's somebody else that. It's that
Jeremiah, I was curious about,
Time.
you know much about this RFP that's the coronavirus funding stuff?
I mean, I know a little bit. I show up to the meetings because I hope that I'll glean some kind of insight.
Right. Yeah.
And I did ask him about. He was actually hired.
I'd love to.
Okay. Good
Yeah.
job. Well done.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I was.
No, I mean, but you like get some candy bars in your pocket. There's like some snacks.
Does it fit? You know,
Yeah.
she's the person I get to that.
Right. Basic criteria, I'm just having trouble figuring out how much to ask for.
Oh.
What is that magic number that, will there be, you know, if I could ask for something and the county's like, well, we want to fund it, we don't work this out. Come back. Right.
Nope.
Maybe for 3 years. Put everything in there.
Like our people. Everybody keeps them because we know how to work with this. Yeah, it was really.
I'll be like, what is
Yeah, we last week, and then she was gone.
Somebody that understands.
Yeah.
As a financial advisor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Deadline. I'm gonna be.
Utility industry planning. Software and planning. Software for planning.
But
It's gonna be.
I've given her.
Right.
Last time I talked.
You help pioneer that. Duke uses tools.
Yeah, I don't believe that's the case.
People who just work with
To give money to start a program.
Duke is really not playing. I don't. Absolutely. I don't know.
All right, I'm gonna bring everybody, ask everybody to
Ask for what you
find their seats. This next part is moving into the nuts and bolts and action planning, and is that excites some of you. Some of you are more excited by the visionary pieces. That's the benefit of having all of different personalities at the table. But the action planning is really kind of getting down into those concrete action items that you all want to put on your action plan for the next 3 years. So what are the specific actions we need to take over the next 3 years to move these commitments? So we're committed to addressing the current climate crisis by supporting the community and achieving our goal of reducing energy demand and transitioning to 100% renewable energy by 2042. We will reach these goals through community engagement and collaboration with Buncombe County, City of Asheville, and Duke Energy.
You also said you are committed to how to address transportation, bring utilities back in, keeping equity at the forefront, and using resources wisely. Listed out what you see your vision in 3 years. Now, this is a 2042 goal, but let's just think the next 3 years. What are those actions we want to embark on in the next 3 years?
We'll be okay if we achieve in 3 years.
Yeah, we won't complain about that. But really kind of like, let's take small bites off. You know, it could be in 3 years that you're kind of reflecting back on what you've achieved in those 3 years and then saying, okay, what do we want to do in the next 3 years? Start kind of really, because sometimes when you think of that far away in time, it's like so nebulous and hard to really get your arms around. So, so again, to move forward with your commitments and your intent to be successful, a successful community council. So what you're going to do now is to take the white pieces of paper, the blank pieces of paper in front of you, and just brainstorm that question. What are the actions, the very concrete actions? These aren't vision items. These are concrete steps. It could be very small. It could be, okay, this is what we want to achieve this year or next year, 3 years from now. What are those concrete actions that you all need to commit to? So just go ahead and brainstorm to yourself for about, I'll give you about 5 minutes. And then I will come back together. Oh, really? That'd be interesting, but not related. Okay. Going on 6 years. I've worked in Atlanta, county government.
It's actually some good use of taxpayer dollars. I can't say that very often. Taxpayer dollars. Is there anything to eat? Sounds- So, are you Weaver? Are you a Weaver? Are you That's an attempt to young. Are you a Weaver?
Oh. I didn't know, literally.
Yes, do you weave?
No, I did sometimes.
What was your maiden name?
Career.
Greer. Speed this.
Can't do that.
myself.
Trade, I can't read mine, so maybe it'll work better that way.
Place a star next to the project or action that's most important to you. Can be more than one action. One more minute to wrap it up. Now I'm going to ask you to just work with your table. At least you want to work. If somebody from this table or this table wants to move over,
Just give them all away.
give them away.
I thought you had more, or else they would have stolen.
We want to have
Sorry.
at least 3 or 4 people at each table. So just share with your table your ideas.
I got better off with
Hold on, again, so.
We got a purple pen.
We have about 10 minutes to do that. Share.
Where are you going? No, where are you going? That's fine.
You don't want me to leave your group?
Everybody wants art. Start.
Well, I was gonna say, they don't have any staff over here. Zero staff. Well, I guess you're a new staff.
I really didn't mean to abandon you guys.
Oh, yeah, right.
See you later, bud.
Alright.
Certainly,
Stay over there.
I guess I'll start.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
I think we need to continue for us.
Well, actually, he's been working with our office. He's been doing a project for us on measuring our community-wide carbon footprint. So he's actually been working with national.
I've got some. I've got some.
It's been a light touch.
Yeah, well, how long do you have?
You know,
Well, you're 40.
Who's second person?
next question, like.
Why? A variety of things.
Jeremiah, do you want me to admit
Can we
low
finish
price?
that?
Sure, yeah.
All right.
Thank you. So.
Sustainability studies.
Friends come over from Michigan and I rafted.
Greenhouse gas emission analysis.
How was your, I guess you're on a mini vacation? Oh, that was good.
Yeah, yeah. We go a long way in people that don't think about it.
Perspective don't.
Yeah, that kind of speaks for itself. I think this is my government, I mean, positive on this, but I think pushing to add renewables to grow, infrastructure as part of their economic development incentive. Right now,
Yeah, sure.
comes in, we're negotiating. Job
We're
creation.
here to be the keeper of that.
All of these good things, right? We don't talk about how they build their buildings, right? So, and they won't
You know, where we're
listen
going.
to us, even if they do, unless you know part of the package incentives.
Yeah.
So you're gonna be bringing, yeah.
If they dangle that carrot out there, okay, we're already gonna offer this much of a rebate on your taxes. We'll bump that number, man, like, do what you have to do to incentivize additional green.
Okay.
That was my. I don't necessarily know adding to the economic development package. Once you show up, start again. encourage
Yeah,
that.
we found lots of, I like that you had that, but yeah.
And the other thing that I wrote down was workforce development. I think that's still just sort of sitting there waiting to happen. Instead of being funded.
All right, well, certainly not raised.
And specifically the
Solar
aspects.
Yeah.
We're successful. Few.
Is there a possibility?
Buying the solarized.
So that's
100 homes is now just. They need a workforce. Are there? That to be local first.
Value due to some, you know, some that's sort of
I think that's working.
see if we can get, if it's really good, we get some
So that was my list. That's what I thought of.
That really makes me. You know, what we talked about early on, in the Solarized meetings about wanting to
You're
create.
talking about with their, like, you're talking about in their own operations.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
Opposed to like, now,
actually get to the point where
do that as work.
Right. How about you?
we're not. Right, yeah. So
I don't know.
infrastructure.
Or house.
That's a really dumb question. Does AV Tech have any sort of
I don't think we're gonna get.
involvement? Could we leverage AV Tech for more of these types of green infrastructure jobs?
I think ultimately we guys saw this. They do have solar.
Yeah, it's gonna be on that.
How successful was the concept. To really get
I
community.
mean, they're supportive,
Yeah,
but
they're
they're not.
supportive, but
Traction.
being supported is
It's showing people.
Doing some
access to your facilities.
What do you mean doing?
By doing this.
And even some of those classes could maybe branch into business ownership as opposed to just technical skills, but we'll just maybe more about, okay, these classes, we wanted to make that next step into.
I think to be ultimately. Yeah. Play a role.
Okay, so just to go through my list, so we all get a chance. What you were saying actually reminded me of something that had been in the back of my head, which was as solar installs age and get removed, like getting those used solar panels and reinstalling them that still have like a 90% efficiency, you know, whatever, reinstalling them other places. You know, like,
Or
yeah,
just.
because I think, you know,
Reuse or something.
yeah, we almost did that. There was a big solar install that was getting taken out from our park. Like trying to coordinate it, but it fell through, and there were these weird like cylinder panels that like weren't very good. And so I was just like, gosh, like I got this whole thing together super fast, and I was like, there's this much enthusiasm. Like next time, you know, somebody's ripping out solar panels because you know they don't like the look or they want, you know, they're building a new building or whatever. Like get those and do something with them, you know.
So that's my.
So that was one thing, and then expanding neighbor to neighbor, or like keeping it going over time, even without being attached to a solarized campaign. I think could has a lot of value. The heat pump, having maybe a tandem. For a while.
A lot of that stuff. I actually do those.
Doing like more commercial consultations, like Sophie and I have been working pretty closely with Undergrad Chocolates for a while. They're awesome, but they're one relatively small company, and like they really are motivated, but the only thing I can tell them is do some of the Duke stuff. And they're like, I don't know, it's just, there's not a lot for them to engage with.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things on my list are kind of similar. Really.
And then this is something that I think could happen in fairly short order is adding more members to the community council and paying
Oh, right,
people
okay,
for
so
their
just
equity perspective.
around, like,
You know, I love that we have volunteers who are able to offer their time. There's a lot of people offer their time and expertise. Yeah, and obviously, money has to come from somewhere.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't think that would be a huge, I think that would improve the chances of us.
I think we need to increase technical. How many extra? I think that really needs to.
So not just like.
What,
All different areas.
Seeking out contacts or ways to engage with Duke Energy.
One size fits all scenario, and I think a lot more things.
No, I mean, everybody.
Being able to like make sure
Yeah.
that even amongst ourselves, you know,
Yep.
trying to
What's the
figure out
most
what
likely
action
response to
landlords and like the action is
Big.
that action, sharing,
And then
just like
increasing
clarity of that.
I also said incentivize net zero filters to
Priority.
Nashville.
Priority.
Kinda like you were saying.
Yeah, so that we can say to ourselves, we have.
How
our
can
own
we have
vision.
builders in town who are already doing that, and give them some carrots, I know that we can't penalize people who aren't.
But
Yeah.
I think we should do like a rolling sort of like program, like continuing. We did, overnight that. Yeah, because I think that helps us feel like we could like the energy out. They recommended doing it once every 3 years. Ideas,
Right.
polarized.
All of that.
For sure. Next year, maybe it's short, medium, long term. Engagement strategy. Like, what is the growth anybody right now? Some of the work, energy savers networks,
How big of an incentive?
Oh,
they're pretty big.
We're gonna pass
like,
that. Wave your
Yeah, and I was thinking, also, maybe some big somewhere.
When
What are we
you're
doing
talking
now?
about builders saying, yeah, spend.
My star.
That y'all are working on doing so hard.
Called stick, pure stick, to the extent that the communities are engaged, and that's what I think the biggest thing we can do is mobilize the community for what it is we're trying to accomplish. That then provides a bit of a, if you come in here and you build a, bare minimums project, the community is going to be happy. And, who really wants to have a negative
Okay, have we checked all the boxes?
perception of the Obviously, we're not Henderson. It's Nashville. We can do, I think,
In terms of.
a lot in that regard. That's the one thing I was here to basically talk about was raising the profile of what we're doing. I know a lot of y'all have been here for a while, and I'm relatively new to town. To the extent that
Tried a lot of different
we raise the
approaches.
profile of our organization, there's ways to become more effective.
Time is our most precious resource.
Maybe the Chamber of Commerce, maybe how do we get more like when we were talking about soliciting our input or our stamp of approval or what have you. I'm not saying the TDA, but there's other organizations, what other organizations could turn to the Blue Horizons project to be a resource or to at least request our, thoughts in terms of what they're obviously, if one talks about that, it needs very limited thought in terms of the environmental or sustainable footprint, energy use, everything else that was done. We have talked to the Biltmore folks maybe a little bit on the front end, or just say, hey, maybe we're not at the table, but at least we can give you some materials that you could review before you can, as you're making these negotiations. Because there's a lot of things that are negotiated with that, everything, the exit on 26 to, there are so many things. Having had the opportunity on the front end of that, negotiating point of, frustrations about, heat pumps. They could have easily done heat pumps on that land when you're basically, grading from scratch, drilling a few wells to put in some geothermal heat and cooling. Could have been very simple. Well, it would cost a little bit, but we were already talking millions of dollars. And that's the other thing. Maybe where do we get articles? Where do we get materials published? Where do we get some ability to raise our effectiveness by
So there's
becoming
PACE
more
legislation
visible?
for commercial
Because,
buildings.
at the end of the day, our organization is not just
required to do it.
Yeah. I know. Right?
I'm a part of that working group to try and get it started in Asheville, but that's like a couple years.
And one thing I was thinking of, maybe we do something very, very simple and basic.
What we're saying there?
I think figure out ways to look at fun, stamp our damn logo on
Turn your
it.
attention back to the
You know,
center.
we put something out there with, you know, but it makes it, you know, I'm actually president of Ashland.
We have the best world.
It's true.
On the sign.
Clap once, can you hear my voice?
Out here.
Clap
And raise
twice,
the profile,
my
you can
face.
see it. Talking about it.
All right. Great discussion. It's really exciting to hear your thoughts and kind of the chatter in the room. So at this point, we're gonna start recording this on the colored pieces of paper, you have pink and green on your table. And what I want you to do is put one idea, one action, just one idea per card, write big, and just 3 to 8 words that captures the essence of that action. So if you all will take the cards, there's we have markers at each of the tables. So with the markers, not with your just regular pen, use the markers, write big, one idea per card, and 3 to 8 words per card.
So for all of our action items that we agreed on, so it's like 40.
We're busy.
Okay.
Your clearest, let's start with your clearest, your highest priorities. And if there's overlap, certainly you all had some overlap in ideas to collapse some of those. But we do want to get all your actions up here. We do want to get those. So there will be a lot, I know. So we can pass out more pens, more markers.
Yeah, I was gonna volunteer to write it, since I'm the staff here, you know.
I know you.
Although
Way better
these
than me.
new, so I'm just gonna try to write it
I
there.
wanted to be legible.
I'd like to be supporting her involved, study.
Yeah.
I just got a tiny one.
Yep, I got plenty of markers. So if you need-
Watching a pot. That they're like, okay, start to understand it. I'm just saying. We're good ideas.
Yeah, like where this had like, I think mine were sort of like never, I think the more we read them and then like.
To be able to show up. Like that, like I think what.
Yeah.
Good at that.
Yeah, we can stick with just, maybe we just did very fun. I like mine.
I love your strategic. I love that. I need you to say that every. How are we gonna write this down?
It's ethics there, but it sounds really great.
That's great. I love it. That's not that good. No, 3 to 8 words. That seems great.
Oh.
Hang on to them, or we're gonna?
Hang on. Yeah. Just keep writing your ideas on cards until. call them up.
We gotta.
Why do we have to do 10? 'Cause I was supposed to do 3.
Okay, we'll call it.
We can do green. Green
Can
needs
we
to go.
just like be the example of how everyone should be?
Yeah, green needs to go. It'll be great.
All right,
It's like, oh, that's a.
You want to do it in green?
which one do you want? Put up there.
Um,
Put down. We just pull it.
Right. I would like to have.
For a
This thing like green.
idea, specific.
I think that's really.
Yeah.
Okay. I.e.
Right.
Example, I could do many others. Berkeley for a while, they were doing volunteer energy audits.
Have that now.
Program, that's what, like, what are
Yeah, I'm
like,
trying to get that, and all.
really
It's just an all process.
Yeah.
They help you out.
I got rid of these sniffing thing. Like kind of a bad habit. Number 4. Are there?
Well,
I know which one you guys like the best.
the one that I also was, very simple. I just don't know.
Yeah.
We were talking about.
Yeah, we're working on it, but.
There is.
We've got, yeah. But they would have to, we would have to respond to it. And it would have to be under the avoided cost rate for it to get approved. So then it would have to just be calculated.
I think about it.
That's what we need to enter for.
Yeah. Dig it. I just don't.
I'm with you now.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you. You give it to them for free?
What's gonna make drive
And then, since you give it to Duke for free, how do they charge you?
feeling.
Is they still charging them extra?
I'm not surprised that that's how Duke said it.
Yeah.
Something that's.
This affluent that can't afford to.
Really, you're only getting 200 words. That's it.
Yes.
And a picture that
Yes.
you,
Yes.
you know, since they come from the word, you got one page.
Yes.
This is separate. I'll make sure some of you guys.
I think I'm gonna have to.
I want to make sure that no one reads.
Right.
Thank you, back to the table.
Well, but more something a little bit more specific.
What's something about the metric?
Get some stuff on. Put up.
I guess it's related.
You know what I mean?
I have no idea about this.
Community engagement strategies, this thing, this project.
Rewriting all the things we
Resources. What's our plan?
That is a community.
Oh, yeah, they're rolling out new software, and so I wanna know if it's easier to get user data, because it's been a pretty initiative.
Right.
Those alliances and measure their success for them. Yeah, Jude did a model.
Yeah.
It's like an line.
Usage there, and so I think we have to be a little more
These like metrics for the sake of getting funding aren't really happy with it.
students, we got hours involved, we got.
Well, this is.
Understanding, like just understanding it now.
weights, measures,
Right,
what we're gonna do.
yeah. Like how many you got?
And that's related to funding.
Well, it's a very.
All right, we got your actions recorded. You can continue putting actions on your cards as we move along, because there may be some gaps that we noticed when we were collecting them. But give me your clear, two of your clearest ideas. It'll all work out in the end, I promise. The proven method. Two clears right here? No. Clearest idea. Clearest, everybody wants to do yours. I mean, just two. Just two.
From the whole table, just two.
All right, I like this one. That one. And we're getting all mixed up here. I promise. I'm just gonna start Jaguar. I think I just right.
Most important.
They'll all make it up here in the end. We just want to start small. All right. Two of your clears.
Yeah. Take offense. Oh, they're coming for us.
I agree.
Any other ones? This one's clear. Affiliate meetings, other stakeholders, I like that one.
I'm gonna give you that one.
All right. Doesn't feel clear to you, it's not clear. A little, like, which one is very clear?
Only two?
Just for now, they'll all make it up there. They'll all make it up.
Team Jaguar standing up.
Oh, yeah?
Or something.
Really good idea.
Usually it's something. Okay. Let me get your attention to the front. So some of the ideas coming up so far are concrete project proposals, i.e. heat pump Route 5. Next one is re-engage.
As intangible, not
Okay,
as.
Re-engage Duke, obtain commitment from them.
Yes.
Community outreach and communication plan. Increase diversity, racial, gender, and skills. Pay Blue Horizons council members for unique perspective. Economic development incentives for renewables and net zero. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, included in all processes and protocols. And strategic plans with milestones, measurement, and reporting. All right, send up two more. Two more that you don't see up here.
Sophie.
Wow.
Coming out.
Someone knows what it's all about.
Oh, Virginia. Yeah, that one for sure.
Energy awareness.
So you're getting into
Every single one.
Everybody?
Okay. Sounds like that.
All right. Focus on lower energy bills as motivation for community. Funding opportunity, tracking grant proposals for specific projects. Provide support to decreasing energy and increasing renewable energy within nonprofit TA financing fundraiser, technical assistance. Increase participation in Duke programs, especially new residential program. Energy awareness campaign. Expand end-to-end.
Neighbor to neighbor.
Neighbor to neighbor. And we have video content.
e-literacy case studies, and increase ESN and
Neighbor to neighbor.
Okay, neighbor to neighbor, solarized, client funding and impact.
Anybody have any wild, crazy ideas on your table? Just like outrageously wild. All right.
What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Create a building tune-up report template. Case studies on best practices. Obtain federal funding for EE and RE projects.
We have reuse solar panel program.
Metrics related to everything. Any different ideas that have, or maybe similar but kind of nuanced differently?
Workforce development. Is that up there anywhere?
Not really.
Send it. Wanna send anything else up?
Let's crowdsource fundraise for free community solar.
Workforce development for solar installs.
Idea.
Work with equity focus groups on their priorities. All right, do we see any groupings, any common themes up here that we can group together?
Neighbor thing was up there.
Yeah.
I think metrics go with strategic plan with measurement.
Concrete project and maybe reuse solar panels and just trying to do something tangible, physical.
Is there another funding?
There's another one of those to it.
There's
lot of
energy
DEI.
awareness and community outreach and communication.
There's DEI and
Video content might go with that too.
And to focus on lower energy bills under community.
Right, and the nonprofit assistance might go with the concrete project.
What was that one?
To provide support and energy to.
Underneath workforce development,
RE.
the green,
Goes under
Maybe the
Concrete
concrete
project.
project.
and DEI and increased diversity and work equity, I think work.
workforce development, economic development come together. And then there's a couple utility ones. Engaged, re-engaged youth, increased participation.
Case studies kind of go into community outreach and communication. No, over there.
This
Community
one?
community outreach at the top.
This goes under here.
Video content.
What is that?
Maybe
second
under the
one?
diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, I think pay is probably under the increased
I
diversity.
think building tune-up goes under concrete projects.
Yeah. So there's still some ideas I see on some tables. Is there any others to include with these ideas?
Well, we've got nothing up there about transportation, which we identified as one of our priorities.
Okay.
So, I said more buses, but like there should be more things about transportation.
Is it like if we don't put it in now, it's out? Is this the like full bucket?
For years.
Yeah, there's.
So more buses. Is there anything else with this? An action?
Here's a transportation.
Just education matter. Yes, there's more to that.
Is there more actions under that?
We didn't write it on a big card, but transition our fleet to electric.
Want to write it on a card and we'll add
If I
it?
have your permission.
Absolutely. Please, if you see anything missing,
What do you mean?
we
on
want
fleet?
actionable items. Items you can take action on.
I don't see that as.
You could place it where this
In the
is.
blue.
We already have the goal.
You already have the goal. So it's neat.
Yeah. We already, I passed the sustainable policy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know that.
So,
It'll be okay.
What I got? Where's that? Where'd you go? Symbol.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, consultation. Sounds more important.
All right, is there any other burning actions that
These are like hundreds of.
This is home energy conservation's increase, consultations increase, sorry. And then Solarize sequel. It's a sequel to the current Solarize campaign. Work with universities was added. Transportation, education, community mapping for EV infrastructure, clean car understanding, bike, pedestrian infrastructure was added. All right, anything else I want to bring up?
She's scribbling
Steve
away over
is
there.
Under the concrete
You just like
proposals.
to smell the black.
Okay. This is like promote, obtain, rebates for high efficiency.
Yeah.
All right, so,
We got one more, we're just trying to figure out.
okay, sure.
Yeah, that's technical support.
Yeah. They won't know. I probably won't.
Where do you want this one?
Under concrete.
City and county incentives for business, hotel.
For example, the
Just
hotel
examples.
ordinance was, said, that was done, and, that PW's in retrospect, maybe the county with our collaboration could have worked to do a table earlier with Pratt Whitney about.
So that's the economic development incentives for renewable and net zero is kind of what that's kind of what I meant by that.
Okay, good, sorry.
No.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one probably should go under the.
Right, those. Or those could be possibly.
I think it goes there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wherever it goes, wherever we do, make it more specific.
All this.
Energy.
I should not have been the person writing it. And sorry.
Terrible.
Energy manager and commercial building support.
Okay. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna name each of these groupings. We're gonna name, just a one, 2-word name that captures the essence of this grouping of actions. And so we're using the symbols above just to say, oh, okay, I think the star should be named, whatever it is you believe that grouping should be named.
And what you may find is that some of these can be collapsed or moved into a different category when you start going through this naming.
We can start left.
So where do you want to start? You can start wherever it may be the easiest or transportation.
Transportation.
Okay.
Oh, Duke. Gotcha. Right.
So I think we should change star rather than Duke. I think we should put it as utilities because we had a conversation about the energy
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to
management.
call it that. I couldn't read it. So I was saying out loud what it is. I think utility engagement is probably what it is.
Yeah, because we're not engaging the EMCs if we're just focusing on Duke.
Right. Or they buy the power.
Or
I mean, you could say others, I mean, other types of energy. Maybe utilities, maybe energy providers.
So I'll call it a flower. I'm assuming. I have an issue with the workforce development for solar installs being in that, because I see those other two as incentive based, sort of directly related to like government incentives for economic development, right? Right. So like when it comes in and we're going to give you X amount of years off your taxes, but we'll also do X, Y, or Z if you commit to, installing renewables, et cetera. Whereas that workforce development piece is more of a developing a pipeline of employees, right? Of folks that are getting their NCEP certification or, whatever to job creation, right? Like, I don't know, I see it as slightly different.
Others agree with that? Everybody see that differently?
Yeah.
So what would you call that grouping, the flower grouping?
government relations.
I would call it economic development center.
Incentives or economic development? I think if we're talking specifically about the incentives, I mean, economic development is super broad. Like,
That's
there's
true.
a lot of ways we could engage in economic development, but if this is about like county and city leverage points for the private sector, then it's more about incentives specifically.
But incentives by itself is such a nebulous term. It could be incentives to, at a residential level.
It's private sector, it's private sector incentives versus. Right, and some specific examples there, I think maybe that's the work, is like narrowing in on like what's the most bang for our buck, like where is the pressure that we're, like what incentives are we looking to pursue? Because there's a lot that could be pursued that might be impactful, but what's the most impactful? Like Pratt and Whitney versus like.
Our $100 solar rebate.
Exactly, right.
But it's more, that's specifically on public sector. That's what we're saying, right?
Well, that's what I was thinking about when I said economic development incentives for renewables was private sector, the New Belgians and the Pratt Whitneys of the world.
Right, the
Like,
public sector giving those incentives.
correct.
So.
We for example, we don't currently have that in our economic development policy, that that's part of the equation, right? It's about job creation and how much what's the investment going to be all that. It's not a part of our policy, and that's something that maybe this group could help to influence, right? That's what I was thinking.
What I'm hearing. Maybe see that differently.
I think the difference is like as applied by
Local government.
local government, right? As opposed to like in municipal private sector separate.
I would be tempted to flip it and call it local government.
That's what I was saying.
Added from local government.
Good.
All right. This square. Okay.
Equity inclusion. The DEI is kind of it, right?
Yes.
Diversity, equity.
Yes.
The triangle.
That's just community engagement.
Yeah, community outreach, community engagement. No, that's not how I feel. Community awareness.
Awareness and engagement.
I might use move case studies and best practice to the strategic plan metrics. We're tracking what we do, so we have reports supported by data.
See that differently.
Well, I think case studies are what you're gonna show to people to show your engagement, you know, that's what I'm thinking about case studies. It's materials that,
Right.
to promote.
I mean, it would, those are promotion materials. Yeah,
Right. But then there's also the making of studies.
Right.
Right, another one is just case studies, put it in.
Sure.
Something
Yeah,
better
that works.
encouraged you and me.
Not case studies.
Right under metrics.
The name of this was
Oh, that's community outreach.
community engagement.
Over to the plus sign. What would be your title for this?
I actually think those two need to move into the moon column of concrete projects.
Agreed. Okay. And how about the tree?
Fundraising.
Fundraising.
That could go with planning. Could.
That's fine too.
Matter fast, yeah.
Fundraising?
Don't ask me about anything before the pandemic, I don't remember.
How about the sun?
Planning and implementation.
It's more like reporting. Or our North Star. Just call it our North Star.
Just fell to the ground.
Data and reporting?
Yeah. Data and reporting. Yeah.
We have the moon, it's our last column.
Strengths being just a list, that's a list of either specific, tangible, or concrete project proposals.
These seem like programs to me, because they're, some are concrete projects, and some are like a support group, or,
What is it?
oh, I guess it's like this community engagement.
Yeah, I view that column as being the column of what specifically that should we focus on to move on all of this. Like the Solarized project, like the home energy consultation. Those specific project proposals and then, you know, some title like just like that. And then maybe get ECOP's its own, ECOP's down there. ECOP group on my goodness.
Not quite like deliverables, but it's like concrete projects.
Projects and programs.
Projects and programs?
Yeah.
So we have transportation, utility engagement, private sector incentives from local government, diversity, equity, and inclusion, community engagement, projects and programs, fundraising, and data and reporting. Anything missing that you wanted to work on over the next 3 years or accomplish that we don't have?
The workforce development part.
Thank you. Good. Where does that fit? The program?
And could go in different categories based on how this group decided to pursue it.
Kind of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's kind of private sector. It's kind of project program. It kind of straddles, I think, all of them.
One other thought I'd like to suggest. It occurs to me that the items under transportation, really the way I fit elsewhere, the more buses and the bike pad infrastructure seem like they're projects and programs, potential projects and programs. And then the transportation education and clean car understanding are part of community engagement. But it may be that the group feels that transportation deserves its own special, at least an aspect of that.
Think about that.
I'd like to encourage us to consider transportation as part of the whole web instead of a separate thing.
They're considering breaking that up. Yeah.
My question would be is like, what does more buses and bike ped infrastructure mean to the group?
Yours.
So like, I mean, right, like we have the transit master plan, there's the multimodal commission, the county has their own process for how they engage on providing transportation outside of city limits, so I'm asking, like, you're not gonna go out and build sidewalks, right? So what does that mean? Is my question.
And I guess transportation is one of those things where it's like, it really affects the whole community, but the government is the one who's executing it.
Right, and there's engagement processes already in place, so you're saying like, you're gonna engage within those, or is there additional work? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Or maybe for our focus. How does it relate to our focus? Like,
I think
electric buses.
it's, yeah, electric buses for sure, which I know have been a challenge. But I think coordinating with the groups who are working primarily on that, like throwing some of our resources behind, working with them. Good, I mean, I don't want to totally take on their work. Obviously, they'll do a better job than we will, but like, how can we support them?
And that should be it sounds like all this stuff is, there are other places where this is,
Other
this is in
engagement
place.
avenues,
I
right?
think the question is whether this group can find some meaningful way to be supportive of what's already in place, rather than creating its own new deal. And that's a legitimate question. Is there something, is there potential to think about ways in which this group can be supportive of what's already in place, as you've described it, or not? I mean, there are limited resources here. There are a bunch of projects up here, and do you want to spend time and energy working on something that other people are already actively working on?
And I would think, yeah, I would suggest to go along with that, you know, we have Dave, who's the transportation expert, and we have Bridget knows what's going on. I mean, maybe we need to get educated up and then try and make a decision about where we can
I'd leave it in capable hands, that's what
I wonder what maybe we need to track the benchmarks of those other programs to see how it tracks with reaching our 2042 goal, right? So maybe just, they didn't have that when they started those committees. They had different goals in mind, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we just need to engage with those groups, say that the county has this goal, be reporting back in our metric about where we are in transit infrastructure.
Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable. I'm just saying that somebody volunteering to like be the point person. I'm thinking about this Q1, Q2, Q3, so that's why I was asking, was just to clarify so we knew where to like map it out.
Well, and if you remember to the first activity, transportation did fit pretty firmly in the next steps. We didn't really bring it.
I get transportation electrification all day long.
Yeah,
But when I see bike ped infrastructure and more buses, that's what I was asking about.
Is it something new and different, or was your question?
Or how you're gonna engage, like what's the work, what's the actual,
For this group.
right?
Right.
What's people gonna like come up and do, so I can help.
We should come back to that later. I feel like that's a super tough one.
Okay. I do wanna, look at the projects and programs because I want to see if there are more distinct groupings. Because as you go into action planning, you don't want to be all over the board with like kind of what you're doing and not really knowing where to start. I'm seeing a couple of projects that maybe, have the opportunity to group together. Like, is this solarized sequel the same intent as this?
No.
No, okay. This create a building tune-up report template. Can somebody explain what that means?
So that's using building analytics to optimize, identify the waste in the building.
Okay, and does that fit under here, or is it more around data and reporting?
Well, I was thinking about it more of deliverables than deliverable.
To provide to
Yep.
building owners.
Yeah, I think it fits with under the programs, it fits with like technical assistance to commercial users and also for the nonprofits, you know, like here's how you can rate your building and see where you should invest.
So if we're to consolidate, we could just call that, it's all part of technical assistance.
Okay, and is that in community engagement?
But I think that might be the thing there. Dave's thing might be the actual.
Yeah, I was trying to provide a very specific.
Right.
Hey, here's
I love
something you
it.
can put it.
I just want to make sure that we're not,
Yeah.
this one has a lot of.
Yeah, like.
We just break into programs that already exist and programs that we're talking about creating. Because there's
Okay.
several programs up there that we're already doing that we want to keep doing.
Like this.
Like is Neighbor to Neighbor, ESN, Energy Chats, or Home Energy Consultations are already happening. Where it's right next to it, yeah. Home Energy Consultations, yeah. Those things are already happening. And then, so we need to then break down into programs that aren't yet happening.
All right, that's good.
I do think the heat pump probe thing is really interesting. I think it could tie us into, you know, it can tie us into community engagement and helping out with low income, you know, energy bills. And I think there's a lot of different heat pump things out there. Cause like the high efficiency heat pumps is one thing. A low income heat pump program is another thing. It's really interesting to think about.
This is already happening.
At the university level.
Okay, so we have work with universities here. Is that a different?
I think that's a lot, to me, that's really, it's a lot of places. Like if we work with universities and in our data metrics, it allows us to create more robust case studies, but it's also working with the universities in community engagement, reaching out to them to have, you know, additional feet on the ground, additional, so to me, that's working in a lot of different aspects that actually come back to workforce development. You know, there's a lot of potential there in a lot of spots. It's more like a tool to accomplish a lot of these things rather than cleaning up. So
If we were to continue with that, the thought of bucketing the programs and projects into new and existing, tell me which ones would fall under each.
Yeah, so in terms of the new ones, you have those three together, Home Energy, operations at Neighbor to Neighbor, and ESN. You get the network, because they're all three are sustained. The solar, your reuse solar program, that's a new thing. God support. So what's the thing on solar? God support to energy.
To decrease energy and increase renewable energy within nonprofits. So this has three different ideas that relate to.
That's existing. Sequel, sort of like it's new, but it's existing now, but they're talking about, you know, another round of it.
It isn't, I mean, where are we going with this? I think isn't the task for both of these, for the existing programs or initiatives that you have going, you want to evaluate one, whether they should continue going and ways in which they can be expanded. For the new ones, you want to evaluate their potential. Should we take on these new specifics? So whether they're under new programs and projects or existing ones, it's basically the same evaluation. It seems like that's the kind of first step in saying which are we gonna, let's evaluate and see which are we gonna go with, right? In by next week, right? Then we move on.
Okay. So that's just kind of breaking that apart a little bit gives it some definition. Because what will happen next is you all will start to commit to smaller work groups on these. I just wanted to make sure it's that the efforts are honed in a little more when you start to talk about it. Because when you get into a lot of projects and programs that could have been separate category, starts to get a little overwhelming for the subgroups. Did you have a question?
It seems like if you're talking about evaluation and retooling, solar I see what will be under existing, that's the next step for existing program.
Okay. I think that gives a good, it's all still under projects and programs, but it kind of gives a little bit of a context. Anything else about these groupings that you all want, that gives you pause or feel comfortable with? Or the workforce development for solar.
That's sort of an existing program. It's just not, doesn't have much going on right now. But it does
Okay.
exist. Yeah.
Does that feel comfortable to everybody?
Yes.
We got last box, right?
Yes, we don't want to leave any stragglers. All right. Turn it over to Heather. Oh, okay. I can do that while you're.
All right, so look at the actions, these ideas that you have up on the board here. And I want you all to think about what can you realistically do over the next year. By year, we're talking about this month through September, what can you start? And then all the way through next June. What are some of the actions that you feel that you can commit to, put your energy behind?
So building tuna, we're talking to App State about creating some deliverables. I think that's within the next year. That's very specific, but it's cheap.
Right here.
Do we need to make a distinction as one between what the BHP-16 takes on versus what current staffing resources within Greenville Alliance take on?
We'll handle that in just a minute. What I'll have you all do is you're going to come up and put your name next to the actions you're going to work on. But for now, let's just talk about realistically as a group, we're doing this exercise as a group. What can you commit to starting over the next year? Putting your energy behind.
I think we can put the community outreach and communication plan in.
That seems pretty important, right?
We've already talked a little about trying to add some video content to the website.
Right? We're kind of in the process of trying to redo the website. There's a lot of change.
You're not falling under specific orders, so.
Not yet. They will.
I mean, I think for the whole first year, taking the whole list of projects and programs new and existing, doing an evaluation of their viability, whether this is something we want to get underway, some heat pump proposals, for example, or whether it is useful to do a sequel to Solarize. We just need to make a call on people need to focus on specifics of either the new proposed program or the existing one and say it's a go or it's not a go. So that would be.
Move them all over?
How about let's say, I mean, existing.
We just moved that.
I just
Right?
moved the yellow.
Yeah, move the yellow thing,
The yellow.
existing programs over there, because they're still gonna be in there.
Add evaluation on there.
That's what, yeah, valuation is what the key. Project and program evaluation, both for the new and
Evaluation of everything on here and decide what to take on in the next year.
that this is real, this is not gonna work, right?
Or like parking lot it for FY '23.
So might be the strategic plan one. moving it over. That's really that.
That might encompass it, right? Instead of moving over.
I mean, I think existing projects, someone said that they're existing, so they are already there, but the strategic planning and measuring and reporting on them is the part that's. I don't know.
My name,
Steve.
Steve.
Steve is talking about measuring and reporting.
That's not realistic.
That's what we're doing right now.
Right, part of it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go.
It's the next steps that will take place with all of this. Any other items in here that you all?
Yeah.
We kind of say DEI is included in all processes and protocols, would better be in the front end and not at the end.
I think it would be very achievable to add new VHPCAC members and pay them for unique perspectives. Doesn't money exist for that?
A limited amount of money exists for that, yeah.
But
As far as like paying everybody a salary, that does not exist.
well, not everybody, but I think that, you know, we've been talking again and again about how we need to bring in new perspectives to this group. That would be a pretty achievable do.
So maybe like fundraising.
Needs to come first, right? Is that realistic?
Do that.
I mean, money exists to do that on a limited amount.
Okay.
For this one? Start looking into funding opportunities and proposals.
You know, I was kind of thinking, when I was thinking about the strategic plan, which I realize now it's like a bigger thing, I was thinking more about like, okay, we gotta get to 0 by 2042. It's how are we gonna like measure that, you know? And so maybe, you know, that could be a way to evaluate like all of our programs as well. So like kind of having that framework. I don't know if that's like the metrics card or if you know, we kind of already have that because we got our baseline established. And so how do we like say, okay, next year we reduced CO2 by 10% and also these other important things.
You're saying this isn't necessarily something. we're going
Well,
to
I think
really
that's
discuss.
it's just,
Larger.
I was thinking about what are our key measurables, so maybe we just move metrics over. I mean, maybe we need a strategic plan too, but I'm just thinking about.
So let's look at these and tell me what can happen in the next 3 months. Can get started.
Funding, yeah, it's kind of in process right now. Both for existing and new things.
What else?
I think we could start looking at paying, to include for diversity purposes, trying to get some more, you know, whatever it takes to increase our diversity of membership.
This one or?
At least they're kind of linked. I think one achieves one is designed to achieve the other.
What about Q2? This fall, what comes next? Got community outreach, case studies, building tune-up report, template. I mentioned this is, you're sort of working on this already, right? Not under Q2?
Yeah.
Knowing that it may, there's likely work that's continuing. No.
Seems like this programs and projects like metrics, analysis, strategizing needs to happen in Q1 or Q2 in order to do the planning and ongoing fundraising. Really kind of understanding impact. Because otherwise you can't pull any of these projects over to like actualize maybe 3, 4, 5 until we like dig into the yellow card.
Okay. So new and existing. We'll just put here for now. And then the remainder of this year, the beginning of 2022.
So the community and outreach, that's kind of the movement is we discuss the community that's start after COVID, because there are a lot of parts of that land stalled before this community did it. So I mean, comfortable having it in any of those categories. There are details and parts.
I would advocate maybe try to do it in Q2 possibly. So much work on that.
We can maybe move.
What are we gonna tell
Is that?
them? What's our message gonna be? Yeah, like, maybe that's why it goes a little way, what we kind of, what, okay, never mind.
Well, that's right.
Yeah. There are likely quite a few initiatives within each of these that you all will flesh out.
I think re-engaging food needs to be in the front side.
That'd be pretty important, right?
Yeah.
Would you like to put it in Q3?
I think putting it like day one.
Yesterday.
So Jason said he's committing to at the August meeting, giving an update on the modernization. So he'll be presenting, so there'll be a chance to also maybe grill on the other.
That kind of gets with someone about, get back on the team rather than just sort of, in addition, does something.
So I stuck metrics in Q3, building tune-up report template in Q4. You're pretty heavy over the next, what you said you're going to work on over the next 6 months.
Well, the idea is that this would be completed by this, right? It's not,
no way.
this is sort of.
Starting it, and then you'll develop a timeline for when you plan to have it completed.
Clarity could be put under the programs and projects existing and new evaluation. That's what we've, I think, have talked about what we would be doing.
Do you want to write down a new one?
Evaluation's a small word.
Is that right? Is that all right?
Yeah, great.
Just gonna have that
And then-
Steve's name next to that?
Down below, and also on the yellow sheet card down below, right below.
Is there anything else that you all can commit to starting over the next
year. Move over anything from the private sector initiatives or incentives for the transportation bucket.
I personally do transportation education constantly, so I don't know if we want to move that over to this group.
Easy win.
I'm the August Sierra Club program.
You want? Since it's ongoing already. Okay. So now what I'd like you all to do, trying to finally have a certain number of stickies. I'd like you all to put your names next to these items that you're committed to working on. So we should do it for all of them, like I said. Any thoughts, Christina?
I would do it by by topic, the bucket, yellow. It's gonna get a little tricky with the program project.
Those are your sort of activities program.
Grab a pen. Next to the topic that you plan to work on and be engaged in all the actions within it.
Why'd you go in the wrong direction?
I was just saying.
No, I was gonna remark to you privately, but now that this is the level where I can sign Chris Keller on things.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll put them up for Q1, Q2. Right, he rolls out at the end of that. We'll read it on the projects and programs as well.
And I think I'm going to create one, two for the evaluation. This topic over.
Good idea. Because they want to look at it holistically, the thing is singing new together. They just want to put up one, sign up.
All right.
Yes.
I would like to invite you all up here to put your name next to these groupings.
For my bad handwriting. My favorite, right?
What can you commit to working on, and then you'll sort of work with the group of names that are on these groupings. And you can sign up for more than one.
So I really not supposed to. And I'll
Make sure it's first.
I'll-
Wool dogs.
The council would have to.
There's been a lot of discussion. I've had a lot of.
Yes, yeah. Sure.